In this video, we will be talking about subject-verb agreement and 14 rules of subject-verb agreement. What is subject-verb agreement? It simply means that the subject and the verb in a sentence need to agree. To do this, a singular subject with no S ending needs a verb with an S, and a plural subject that ends with an S needs a verb with no S, zero ending. For example, a student reads, students read. A student was reading, students were reading. As you can see, subject-verb agreement rules apply only in present tenses and in past progressive only. Let's start with the rule that we just discussed. It's rule number 1. It applies to all subjects in present tenses. If the subject is singular and it's a third person, you have to have an S for the verb. So this is the formula. Subject has no S, then the verb gets the S. If the subject is plural with an S, the verb gets zero ending. And the same here. As you can see, there's examples. Now, what happens if you have compound or complex subjects? So if the subject is not just one noun, third person singular, or plural noun, but what if the subject has several words in this? It's a phrase. It's called a complete subject or complex subject. You need to find one word. In other words, you need to find a simple subject that will tell you how to conjugate your verb in a sentence. So you have some examples of complex subjects here. So in this video, you will be learning how to identify 14 simple subjects. Rule number 2. What if you have subjects with a prepositional or adverbial phrases? Prepositional or adverbial phrases that come between the subject, the simple subject, and the verb do not change the number. They don't matter, and I call them simply junk. Let's look at some examples. The price of those shoes, that's a complex subject, a complete subject, and you have a prepositional phrase of those shoes that doesn't count, and so the simple subject is price, it's singular, therefore the verb is. The teacher as well as the students was working on the problem. Why was? Because the simple subject is the teacher, and as well as the students is an adverbial phrase, and it doesn't count. My mother together with the children is. Why is? Because the simple subject is the mother, and the rest of the subject is junk. Here are some examples of prepositional and adverbial phrases. So you know prepositions like of, about, in, with, and when they come with a noun, they make a prepositional phrase. Let's look at this sentence. Some homes on streets of this small town in Cuba are ruined. So you have this one long complex subject. And there are 3 prepositional phrases here. On streets, of the small town, in Cuba. So out of this complex subject, only the word homes is a simple subject, and because it's plural, you have the verb are. My classroom in Building 6 at Valencia College on East has a new carpet. Again, you see this long, complex subject, but the simple subject is the classroom because the rest is junk, prepositional junk. You have 3 prepositional phrases. In building, at Valencia College on East. Here are some examples of adverbs, as well as, in addition to, together with, along with, except, and when they followed by a noun, they make an adverbial phrase. A popular singer, together with her band, is performing tonight in Orlando. So here's your complex subject, a popular singer, together with her band. Now, together with her band is an adverbial phrase, junk. So the simple subject is singer, which is singular. That's why you have the verb is. Now, you might notice that there's a prepositional phrase in this sentence, in Orlando, but it's not part of the subject, so we don't consider this. Rule number 3 is pretty easy. If your subject ends with one or thing, it's always singular. The words like everybody, everyone, no one, nobody, something. So these are all singular words. Everybody knows, nobody speaks, somebody has been in the room. Rule number 4, subjects with each, either of, neither of. When words like each, either of, and neither of are used in the subject, they take a verb with the suffix s. For example, neither of my friends speaks English. So the complex subject here is neither of my friends. And if you remember from rule number 2, of my friends is a prepositional phrase. Therefore, the simple subject is neither. You apply rule number 4, and you know from rule number 4 that neither is always singular. That's why the verb takes the s. Either of these books is worth reading. Again, we're applying 2 rules, prepositional phrase of these books, and either, according to rule number 4, is singular. That's why the verb is. Each student and each professor is required to wear a mask. We use rule number 4 that says when you have each in the subject, it's always going to be singular. Rule number 5, subjects with the possessive case. Words with an apostrophe or an apostrophe and s are adjectives. They're not nouns anymore. Therefore, they cannot be your subjects. For example, Mary's feet. The subject is feet, and Mary's is just an adjective. Feet is plural, therefore the verb is have. Valentine's Day. Valentine's is an adjective, therefore day is singular. That's why you have the verb is. Rule number 6, quantity expressions. Remember all these phrases: some of, most of, half of, some fractions, percentage, a lot of, none of. Now, they could be singular and plural. It all depends on the prepositional phrase. I know you just learned rule number 2 that says consider the prepositional phrase as junk. It's not important. And rule number 6 tells you, no, actually you have to now pay attention to your prepositional phrase. Only for the noun. If the noun is plural, some, all these words become plural. If the noun is singular, all those subjects become singular. Some of my books are, some of my book is. Most of my essays are, most of my essay is. Half of my essays are, half of my essay is. 1/3 of students know, 1/3 of money is. 50% of students know, 50% of my tuition is, and so on. Rule number 7, when you have subjects one, each, every, that comes with the preposition of, you always consider those subjects, simple subjects, singular. One of you is brave, each of you knows, and every one of them has. Rule number 8, a number versus the number. A number means some, many. For example, a number of people have been protesting. The number just means one digit. The number of students has increased. So it could be 25 students in the class. So the number is 25. So the number is always singular. A number is always plural. Rule number 9. Subjects joined by or, nor, not only but also, neither nor, or either or. When you have subjects like this, the verb must agree with the closest subject to the verb. For example, not only the man, but also his wife. This is a complex subject. The word wife is closer to the verb knows, and it's singular. That's why you add an s to the verb. Either the man or his friends know. The children or the man knows. My mom nor my dad speaks. Neither my mom nor my sisters speak. Rule number 10 talks about collective nouns as subjects. As you know, collective nouns are usually singular when regarded as a unit. Words like team, class, family, committee, crowd, crew. Sometimes these subjects can be plural. Let's look at some examples. My family lives in Ankara. So family is singular, you get the verb with an S. Our team has won every game this year. But if in the sentence you have some kind of an indicator of plural, like in the sentence the committee fight among themselves, themselves is a plural pronoun, that's why the committee becomes singular and the verb doesn't take an S. Or here's another example. The committee has just made the final decision, or the committee have just made their final decision. Because you have their, which is a plural pronoun, the committee becomes plural, therefore the verb have. Rule number 11 talks about infinitives as the subject, as a simple subject. An infinitive used as the subject of a sentence always takes the singular form of the verb. You add the S ending to the verb. Infinitives are the base form of a verb with particle to, for example, to go, to be, to see. Let's look at this example. To collect antique coins was Jim's ambition. The complete subject is to collect antique coins. And even though coins is plural, your simple subject is the infinitive to collect. And as we know from rule number 11, infinitives are always singular. That's why you have the singular form of the verb to be. However, if two infinitives linked by and, they take a plural verb and you have no S at the and the verb takes no S. In basketball, to dribble and to shoot require. You have two verbs connected, joined by and. Rule number 12 talks about gerunds as the subject. A gerund used as a subject of a sentence takes the singular form like the infinitive in rule number 11, and the verb takes the S. Gerunds are ing words that function as nouns, not verbs. For example, saddling wild horses was no easy task for the cowboy. Again, this is your complete subject. Horses is not the simple subject. The simple subject is saddling, which is a gerund, and it's singular, therefore you have the singular form of the verb to be, was. And again, if two gerunds are linked by and, the verb becomes plural. Collecting and playing are my hobbies. Rule number 13 talks about inverted structures starting with there or here. In cases when a sentence starts with there or here, the subject comes after the verb to be. If you have a singular noun after the verb to be, use a singular form of the verb to be. And if the subject is plural, then you use the plural form of the verb to be. For example, there was a terrible tsunami and earthquakes in Japan recently. So you have tsunami and earthquakes as your complete subject, but because the word tsunami is closer to the verb and tsunami is singular, you have the verb was. There are many different languages and religions. Languages and religions is a complete subject, but languages is closer to the verb and it's simple. It's a simple subject. It's plural, therefore you have are. There is one professor and several students. Again, professor and several students is a complete subject, but professor is a simple subject, therefore the verb is. And our last rule for today, rule number 14, it's the easy rule. I'm sure you already know this rule. When two subjects joined by and. If that's the case, your subject is considered plural and therefore the verb will have no S. My cousin and I are taking EAP. The state and national partners work. So you have a simple subject as the state and national partners. And this is it for today. My students created a cheat sheet that summarizes all 14 rules that we just talked about. This paper is available to you after this video in the link below. And I recommend you print this and you use this cheat sheet when you are doing practices. That's it for now.